Welcome to Issues That Matter. I'm Cynthia Pooler. My guest today is Alan Collinge, and Alan was a candidate for president in this past election, and he's going to talk about the results of the election and how it relates to the student loan debt crisis. So, Alan, did you ever figure out how many votes you got?
No, unfortunately, I didn't. I looked in quite a few states, but apparently most of the states only list the number of write-in votes that there were. They don't break those votes down by candidate.
Okay.
That was true in all the states I looked at. If I got even a few thousand, that would probably be on the high side, quite frankly. So I'm disappointed. Clearly, I honestly thought I had a really good shot, but you know, if your name's not on the ballot, and if the media isn't helping you, it's pretty tough to break the lock that the uniparty has on our nation's politics. Unfortunately,
So overall, what did you think of the results? Did you expect Donald Trump to win in a landslide the way he did?
no, I wouldn't call it a landslide. It was about what 7,000 votes or 7 million votes difference in a population of 330 million people. I was surprised, though. I have to say, Cynthia, I really believe that because of the student loan problem and because the Republicans were just so obviously terrible on the issue, that just like in 2020, student loan borrowers would sort of hold their nose and vote for the Democrats. I was wrong. Clearly, that did not happen. And I should say, I'm a fiercely nonpartisan guy. We're a fiercely nonpartisan group. But there are 40 million people with student loans who are losing sleep over their student loans. And, we're, in my humble opinion, I think we're the largest politically untethered voting bloc in U.S. history. And I think that was borne out last week. Um, People just were not buying what the Democrats were selling. And by the way, Kamala went completely silent on the student loan issue from the day that she became the presumptive nominee. She didn't even mention student loan debt the entire time she was on the campaign trail that I noticed. I think Tim Walz may have referenced it in passing once or twice, but Kamala very loudly was silent on the student loan issue as a candidate.
And you said that was because of her wealthy friends in California, right?
Oh, it absolutely was. A woman, Mary and Stephen Swig, her husband, a billionaire real estate family from San Francisco, they killed Joe Biden's student loan cancellation initiative back a couple of years ago. So Mary Swig whispered in Nancy Pelosi's ear. Nancy Pelosi and others, Susan Rice, other influential Democrats, um, started parodying their claims that the president doesn't have the power to cancel loans. The president does have the power, by the way. It's Donald Trump canceled loans multiple times by executive order. But it was that gave the Supreme Court the permission structure to deny to quash Joe Biden's attempt. And this Swig family is the very same Swig family that launched Kamala's career. So the fix was in against student loan borrowers. We were going to be bitterly disappointed no matter which way this election went. And
So why is it that that Swig family is so against repealing the student loan debt crisis?
I could not. I don't know. It's a mystery to me as well. I know that the Swig family does own a small college in the Bay Area, um, but it's just a mystery to me. This is a very supposedly liberal family. They claim that they are for student loan cancellation, but just not by executive order, apparently. They want to do it through Congress. And that's the stupidest thing in the world. Congress will never cancel student loans because of pay-go rules. In order for Congress to cancel student loans, they have to raise, 1.8 trillion dollars in order to cancel the loans, and that makes absolutely no sense. That's just an asinine uh, proposition in the first place, because the federal government already owns these loans. The federal government already paid for these loans. There's no good reason for the taxpayer to have to cough up $1.8 trillion dollars in new tax money to
Mhm.
cancel loans. So, who knows what else might have been going on behind the scenes with the Swig family. Maybe they have some investments beyond the college that they own. It's hard to say. All I know is what I just said, and shame on the Democrats. Shame on Nancy Pelosi. I would say shame on the whole limousine liberal billionaire crowd that has captured the Democratic Party. I think that was really the bigger story in this election. People are just tired of the elites playing their little limo liberal elite games. And this is true on the right as well, but it was just so pronounced with the Democrats this election, particularly the way Kamala was installed without receiving even one vote from one person to be the Democratic candidate. It was just too much.
But I watched the election closely, and in my opinion, um, Trump was a populist, more or less, right?
You have to say that Donald Trump, he won the popular vote. He didn't do that in 2016. Um, I mean, it's kind of hard how you define populist. I mean, I was a truly populist candidate, not to compare myself, but and even RFK, was he really a populist? It's hard for me to call anyone with $1 billion campaign running on either of the mainstream political parties' agenda populists. But certainly, Donald Trump appealed to the people far more than Kamala did this time
Mhm,
around.
mhm, mhm.
He spoke to their issues. He was sincere, for better or for worse. And, people just sort of trusted him more. And so there's that. As far as his policies are concerned, I don't know. I'm actually quite hopeful on the student loan issue. Not because the Republicans are great, they're not. They're terrible on the student loan issue, but rather because Trump is sort of a wild card. And a lot of people, and we were going to talk about this anyway, so I'll just bring it up now. A lot of people are just incensed, but even in my group, particularly in my group, maybe, about his pick of people like Matt Gaetz to run the Justice Department. But believe it or not, if you have student loans, I could not pick a better Republican for Trump to pick to lead the Department of Justice than Matt Gaetz. Um,
Why?
well, it's very interesting. Matt Gaetz is one of the very few Republicans in Congress who has agreed with us that bankruptcy rights have got to be returned to student loans. He said it publicly many times, several times, probably a half dozen or more times. And that's more than I can say for any Democrat in Congress, just about, during the election cycle, during the latter half of the election season. The Democrats have abandoned bankruptcy, and here we have Matt Gaetz, of all people, a Republican, calling for it. So I was actually really encouraged by Trump picking him rather than, some of the just vicious, terrible Republicans out there, like the Attorney General of Missouri, Andrew Bailey, or any number of other Republicans who are just completely sold out to the student loan swamp.
So
Um,
when Trump first announced Matt Gaetz would be the Attorney General, what was your reaction?
I was really down in the dumps after the election, not because the Democrats lost, just because no matter who would have won that race, it's going to be very difficult for everybody with student loans going forward. But this Matt Gaetz pick gave me a little bit of hope, actually, Cynthia.
Mhm.
And love Matt Gaetz or hate him, and I've been just vilified by quite a few people on our group. Like, how could you vote for that guy? He's a child predator, and he's this and that, and I don't look at any of that stuff. All I care about is the student loan issue. And on the student loan issue, there is no person I would rather see at the Department of Justice than Matt Gaetz. The Department of Justice holds roughly equal authority to the Department of Education in adjudicating bankruptcy claims for student loan borrowers in court. Um, and so I'm thrilled. Unfortunately, I don't think, and maybe you disagree, but I don't think Matt Gaetz is going to make it. I think the knives were out for him from his own party, even
Right.
from the get go. And I think with John Thune winning Speaker of the House, or winning
Majority
the
leader.
majority leader, yeah. I think the knives are out, and I think Matt Gaetz may very well be the token rejection that Trump sees among his nominees. Maybe more, but certainly. And I hope I'm wrong. I actually hope that Trump gets his recess for the purpose of Matt Gaetz being able to step up and lead the Justice Department.
So if a majority of people think that he's not gonna, win, what would you say the nomination, is that right, for Attorney General?
I don't think he'll be confirmed.
I'll
I would,
confirm.
I would
So
be happy to be
if
wrong,
that's
but
the case, why do you think Trump picked him?
well, I think Trump picked Matt Gaetz because he is a firebrand and because he, like Trump, had been targeted by the Department of Justice, uh, by the FBI, and Merrick Garland, and so on and so forth. Uh, I think Trump is actually serious, apparently, about draining the swamp, um, and maybe for personal reasons. But nonetheless, I view anything that shines sunlight into the bowels of these bureaucracies, Department of Justice, I would say the Department of Education, which supposedly Trump says he's going to eliminate. We don't know what
Right.
that might look like, but I could talk about that a little more if you want to.
Would you be happy if that was eliminated?
Well, it's been a popular applause line in Republican circles for actually over 10 years now. People have been clamoring for the closing of the Department of Education. Um, I would like to see it. In my humble opinion, the Department of Education jettisoned all pretense of actually fighting for the people many years ago. The Department of Education is the biggest predatory lender on earth. So the Republicans have been saying it for a while, but they never say what that exactly means. Honestly, Cynthia, I see the chances of that happening as being very slim. It's very difficult to undo the legislation that created the Department of Education. And going back to your landslide, this was not a landslide, in my humble opinion. The Republicans are still only clinging to power in the House by razor thin margins and pretty small margins in the Senate. And I can't see even the Senate, which is like 53-47 now. I couldn't even see the Senate being able to get a majority of the vote to eliminate the Department of Education. I wouldn't mind seeing it though, but they say it, but they never say what they mean by that, and what impact that would have on student loans is an open question. Quite frankly, I the worst case scenario that I see for the Department of Education and the student loan program is that they may try at least to revert to the old student loan program where private banks were making all the interest and making the loans rather than the Department of Education. That's really what the Republicans want. The Republicans want to steal the $107 billion in interest that accrues on the federal student loan portfolio every year. They have no desire or intentions of canceling the loans. At best, they might move the loans to the Treasury Department, maybe the IRS, to administer. Um, but
But
if people out there are hoping the elimination of the Department of Education means the elimination of student loans, yeah, I don't see that happening.
but you said a majority of people with student loans have not paid in a while.
Well, that's very true. Yeah, as we speak, my best estimate is that about 85, maybe 86% of all federal student loan borrowers have stopped making payments on their loans. So the lending system is a dead man walking. And I don't think the Democrats under Kamala were ever going to acknowledge that fact. But I do think that there is a very real possibility that Donald Trump, if not the Republicans, certainly Donald Trump may have the honesty to acknowledge that fact. And if he does, the logical next step from there is at a minimum returning bankruptcy rights to the loans. Um, but quite frankly, this lending system is so finished, Cynthia, it needs to be taken to the bath and drowned in the tub. We need to erase and replace this loan scam. And everybody in Washington, D.C. knows this. Uh, so we'll see how much sunlight Trump can shine into the bowels of all the bureaucracies in Washington, D.C., and maybe get some honest conversations going about what to do with the student loan program. But that remains to be seen. He didn't do much at all in his first term. Although Donald Trump was the first president to cancel student loans by executive order, he did that. He did that twice, and there were no lawsuits. So, yeah, I'm guardedly hopeful with Donald Trump, but I'm planning for the worst, and everybody else out there should too, because it could get very ugly if Donald Trump allows the student loan mafia, for lack of a better word, to do what they want against student loan borrowers. It could get just very ugly.
One of the things that you brought to my attention on the phone, and I've been watching it closely, is that whenever you see a news broadcast, Trump is with Musk and not with Vance.
Isn't that odd?
Uh-huh.
I actually I did a tweet the other day. I said, okay, wait. So JD Vance is the vice president, right? Like, I have not seen Donald Trump and JD Vance in the same place since election night. I haven't seen JD Vance give any interviews, no statements. And as I said, I'm a fiercely nonpartisan guy, but people for very good reason talk about the fear of an oligarchy taking over this country. I would argue that that's essentially already happened. Um, but to see Elon Musk apparently has been living at Mar-a-Lago since even before the election. And a lot of people like that. I don't have a strong opinion about Elon one way or the other. I'm hopeful that in as much as he claims to be a champion of free speech, I hope that he will walk that talk. We'll see. Uh, but I always get nervous when the richest man in the world and the most powerful man in the world are all of a sudden BFFs. So hopefully it'll be for the good rather than for my worst fears and others.
So if where does that leave JD Vance? What do you think?
I don't know. I'm probably reading into things a little too much. Elon's always been kind of a, pardon my French, but sort of a camera whore. He's the guy that runs to the cameras and so forth. He loves the publicity. It
So
might
does
just be,
Trump.
and so does Trump. That's true. They're two peas in a pod. So maybe that's why. Maybe that explains it as much as anything.
Hmm.
I don't think that Elon Musk will do anything meaningful on government efficiency. I think Elon Musk built his empire on government subsidies. I think Elon Musk loves federal spending. I just think that's all just for the cameras. I could be wrong. I could be underestimating Elon Musk.
Mhm.
Uh, but I would say keep your guard up for signs of tyranny, banana republic moves, and frankly, I think we'll probably see some of those. But push for the best and hope for the best because that's all that we can do. And as I said, I think there's some real hope with Trump, if not the Republicans. And he's the head of that. He's the head of that posse now.
But people think that he's gonna redo government completely.
I think people have been overestimating the power of the president for a long time
Mhm.
since World War II or even before. Uh, People have been just afraid of the federal government, and we subconsciously or even consciously sort of give it powers that it does not have. I think the federal government should be far more afraid of the people than the people feel they need to be of it. Um, so to me, this is just, I see our nation's politics today as a uniparty thing. Whoever happens to win power, I see it as, kind of rearranging deck chairs, quite frankly. Um, but we've needed some real change in Washington for the past, in my humble opinion, 40 years or so. The way the wealthy elite in this country have captured both political parties, um, it's very, very concerning to me. And the Democrats, as they're currently constituted, we're never going to fix that problem.
And are you hopeful that Trump might?
I think Trump might lay the groundwork for it. If he's very serious about actually, not pretend, draining the swamp, and maybe he is. I mean, who knows? He really is a loose cannon. So
He's
there's
gonna get a lot of pushback, though.
he will get a lot of pushback. And quite frankly, I would like to see him raise a massive stink about getting these recess appointments. Not that I'm for Trump. I'm not a partisan guy, as I said, but for the purposes of actually shaking up Washington D.C. And returning the power of our nation to the people, it starts with draining the swamp. It really does. And if the
Mhm.
Democrats were smart, they would recognize that and they would leave the limousine liberal wing of the Democratic Party, the Rothschilds and the Swigs and all these Soroses and all these billionaires that are trying so hard to manipulate our politics. They would drop that wing off at the airport.
Mm. So what do you think is in store for the American people, uh, going, Christmas and then New Year's and then, the inauguration? What do you
It's
see?
hard to it's hard to say broadly. I think that we'll see not much of anything from the Biden administration. I think they're like the Kamala Harris campaign. They're in like a lion, out like a lamb.
Mhm,
I think Biden did pretty much what he was going to do. But again, I'm always hopeful. I'm a hopeful person. We are pushing Joe Biden with every ounce of our strength to fix basically what he broke. Make no mistake, Joe Biden did break the student loan program. He was a key senator
right.
responsible for removing bankruptcy rights from the loans way back in the 70s and up to 2005. We're pushing Joe Biden as hard as possible to do what he promised: return bankruptcy rights to student loans,
Mhm.
cancel student loans by executive order before he leaves office. And quite frankly, I think possibly the fate of the Democratic Party rests on whether he does that or not, and on other issues as well. I think we need to see some sort of an acknowledgement from the Democratic establishment that they've been captured by the elites and they've been doing the bidding of the wealthy elite for years and years and years. Until we see that sort of acknowledgement, until we see people from the Democratic ranks, uh, some would say Bernie Sanders, but obviously they need new younger blood at this point. Until we see that, the Democrats are in real trouble, and for good reason.
Hmm. So I'll contact you towards inauguration, and you can make more predictions at that time.
Well, I don't know how good of a predictor I am, Cynthia. Clearly, I didn't call this election correctly. So, um, but there are a few things that are obvious that are in store, certainly for student loan borrowers, and those things will become more clear, more and more clear as time goes on. So, yeah, I'd love to talk again.
But one quick question before we go: are a lot of the people in your group angry
A, lo-
with the election returns?
a lot of the people in our group are losing their ever loving minds right now. Perhaps for good reason. I'm not as worried about Trump as many of the people in our group are. We saw what Trump did in his first 4 years. He didn't do much. Arguably, he did more than Biden for the borrowers rather than against us. So uh, um, I'm not too concerned, but a lot of people in our group, uh, they are just disconsolate. They are just depressed. A lot of them are talking about leaving the country. And we're a nonpartisan group. Most of our members are either Republican or independent. So I think we've got a big silent majority on our group that are just saying nothing right now. But certainly for the left leaners on our group, they are their hair is on fire. And
But did they expect anything better from Harris?
not if they were listening to me and seeing all the research that findings I was putting out. And I think that's true for most of our members, and for student loan borrowers in general. Clearly, they were not enthused about the Democrats. Whether they understood intellectually that the Democrats had betrayed and abandoned us, which they
Mhm.
did, or just sort of viscerally smelled the BS coming from the Democratic Party. Um, they weren't too impressed, and so I don't know. It's gonna be a very very difficult fight for student loan borrowers going forward. I only say to everybody out there with student loans, you likely sat and waited and watched and worried and wondered what they're going to do, and you wrang your hands for years and years on this issue. If nothing else, this should serve as a very strong wake up call to student loan borrowers everywhere. You can't sit there and do nothing anymore. You've got to get off your ass because these are your loans. And, if the Republicans actually got what they wanted, it would be just a tyrannical dystopian future that we have to look forward to. So if you want to avoid that, you better get off your ass, begin to fight. It feels good to fight this battle because all we do is tell the truth. And I think that both Democrats and Republicans alike, whatever their stripes, if we fight hard, are going to finally understand the truth about this failed lending program.
So I'll contact you around inauguration day, and we'll do another show.
I love it, Cynthia.
You so I'm Cynthia Pooler. This is Issues That Matter. I've been talking to Alan Collinge, and if you like this show, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Uh, thank you. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Have a great day.
Happy Thanksgiving, Cynthia.
Thank you. You will